we're doing the unscripted podcast. What I would do is I would talk to him. So I ran the whole thing, and it was one of my best friends, Luke, and I doing the podcast together.
Yeah,
and he would we would just be talking shit, and we'd already have everything set up, and I would just get him talking about something before starting. But what I would do is I would just start recording without telling him, and eventually he'd say something that was fucking funny.
Yeah,
and I'd be like. And we're live with the unscripted podcast.
Yeah.
And he hated that I did that, and I'd leave it in there.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point of a podcast, is to be able to just have a good time and just have a conversation. But, starting off with that, what's going on, everybody? This is Mudflap from Mudflap Outdoors with a brand new episode. And right now, it's the greatest part about it is you're going to hear rain on the tin roof and smoking cigars, drinking bourbon. We're going to have a good time. This is the Broken Down podcast. Presented by Mudflap Outdoors. If you hadn't figured out Mudflap Outdoors, go and check out mudflapoutdoors.com. Get your hats, get your merch there. Go and check them out. But while you're checking Mudflap Outdoors out, you need to check out my guest, Kris Dewberry. What's going on, brother?
Man, it's going. I love how it started raining right when we started talking.
Well, I mean, that's, it's almost like movie magic, kind of what we talked about earlier. Sometimes it just works out that way. Sometimes it doesn't.
What's funny is we've been listening. So one of the things we do when we're songwriting, my father and I, is what I'll do is normally I'll come up with the premise and I'll come up with the music. And I told him lately, I said, I've been listening to a lot of CCR. And I'm like, I kind of want to tap into that, because that's what we'll do is we'll pick an artist and their style and be like, I want to kind of tap into their style a little bit and make it my own.
Right.
So I told him be listening to CCR, and I have been listening to Who'll Stop the Rain?
Yeah.
And I've been listening to Have You Ever Seen the Rain so many times now. So it's kind of funny that this is happening.
Yeah, just full circle right here, man. But so man, what's been going on?
Man, the biggest thing in my life right now that's going on, I just got married. That's one thing, but outside of marriage, the biggest thing that's going on is right now is trying to organize this band and get things off the ground and moving. And like one of the things we just did was played Madison Fest over in Madison, Georgia.
Yeah.
And that came a month after. It was the biggest show of our career yet. And that came 1 month after our lead guitarist went on to do what his dream job is, which is he was an old-fashioned real cowboy. So he went on to do that. And what wound up happening is he
all he's doing is just relighting a cigar. I mean, look, folks who are listening to it on audio, they're not going to see that we have bourbon and we got cigars.
Right.
But look, we're having a good time. You got your dad here. I got my dad here.
That's my dad.
It's a good time.
So he's my co-write. And anyway, so we played Madison Fest. I just lost our guitarist a month prior. I found a guy. His name is Evan. He's a cool dude. And we had to kind of introduce him to the songs. And he had like 1 month. And it's hard to learn a 3-hour show in 1 month, right? And now Madison Fest was only 45 minutes. But that same day, we had a show in Noonan, Georgia in the evening time. It's 3 hours. And so I think my mistake was I kind of just threw all the songs at him. I said, I just need you to learn these songs as best you can. We didn't have we didn't have a lot of time to get him prepared for it, and he killed it when we went to Madison Fest and like played on the stage. Yeah. And so the challenge was it kind of came down to the wire getting him ready. And we went into Madison Fest and we went up on stage. It was one of our best, like, it's our first time playing all originals for a show. Right. And that was one of the big things lately. And that weekend I played 4 cities in 3 days. Okay. And it was so much fun. That was the biggest thing. Now, we've got a little bit of time now before we play our next show. We got about a month, so we're really hammering in a lot of these originals before we have a show as a band. We're playing Valley Fest at the end of the month, and that's going to be another one of those 45-minute all originals. So I think we're going to be even better for that one. And that's a lot that's going on. That, and I'm always recording music and releasing videos and stuff. So it's just been, I'm always busy. And I love it. It's my favorite part about it. It's just always doing something because it's my passion. Right.
So, man, well, first off, I'm just glad that you just came out in the rain to come hang out with us. I mean, the funniest thing about all this is when Jake told me when he was on the podcast and when we were recording for the Broken Down sessions and all that, he was like, dude, you got to listen to Kris Dewberry. I said, okay. I said, all right, I'm in. life happens, time happens, and then he calls me randomly while I was at work. I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He goes, "Hey, you need to, you need to talk to Kris Dewberry." I said, "All right, I'm doing it." And I said, "Give me his number." I said, I'll handle it. I got it from this point." And then I texted you, and after about 20 minutes of texting you, I was like, "Are we the same person?" I mean, you like cigars, you like bourbon, you like music, you like the outdoors, you like everything. So I was like, I think I found my best friend at this point.
I shot you a text yesterday. I was like, "Hey, do you smoke cigars?" I was like following up on that. I was like,
Yeah.
"Do you smoke cigars?" You're like, damn straight. I'm like, "Bet, I got you." Like,
I love
straight
it, man.
up, man.
Man, I'm a sucker for cigars every now and then.
I am glad that it didn't happen right away, because I remember it was like a year and a half ago that I think Jake was on here, a year or so ago.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you didn't reach out to me right away, because like so many people, when they first start, they already have their sound, and it's there. It's exactly what it's. I kind of feel, everybody grows as an artist, but some people hit their genre and their style right out of the gate, and they'll develop their quality over time, but their style will kind of stay in the same vein, right? And I think people like John Boy Story's kind of in that way. Jake Carroll's kind of in that boat. But for me, I listened back to that first acoustic album I put out, and I compared not even just the songwriting, but the way I would play it and the way I would sing it to now. Like on the Mud Flap Outdoor sessions that we just did, where I played, even then I'm singing it with more of my style that I've kind of morphed into versus when I started. And I just think, I'm glad you're catching me now that you're kind of coming on to it and hearing it and playing it for you, because it's completely different than the way I would play back then. And I feel like we're at a point, I think, within the next few years, things are going to really kind of move up. Maybe even within this year, I'm not sure. But there's something in the wind, it feels like, because the bands come together. I'm cold calling places that are hard to get into, and we're getting in. So I feel good about where it's going. And I've always wanted to do be on a podcast, man. Like be invited to do something like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, I went and used the bathroom right before we started this, and I was just looking. I was like, all right, be yourself. Go in there, just be natural. Because we've already been talking for a few hours now before we start this, and I'm like, oh, everything's cool. But in the moment right before we start, I'm like, all right, you gotta lock in.
Yeah, lock in, man. And that's what we talked about with podcasts. Is it again, literally right when y'all walked up, it's like, look, Mud Flap Outdoors. This is the history behind it. This is who I am. This is how we go about these things. Like if you're not true to yourself and you're not authentic, then it's not going to come across that way whenever you're on a podcast. In songwriting, I'm assuming that, and anything, and how you perform and how you talk to people, anything. So I mean, dude, right now you're just kind of getting me. So this is part of it. And let me tell you how real it is. It's raining, and that's about as real as it can get.
Man, especially talking about like authenticity and being real about it and everything. We sing songs. I didn't sing it today because I'm hoping I'll come back with my band. There's a song that I wrote that doesn't make me look good. You know what I mean? I think that's like I think what's really real is being able to be honest about situations and telling a story through a song. And I was watching a documentary the other day talking about songwriting, and I think some of them said about, a fifth of the song is real and the rest of it's inspired by that. And I was like, that's the same thing I've been doing for a few years now, writing songs, is I'll take a moment that or a situation that's real, and then I'll kind of, I don't want to say fantasize, but I'll expand upon that fictionally, I guess, to tell a cool story, And then there's some songs that are pretty much one-to-one, like Deuces Wild is completely one-to-one. And it was like that whole story happened when my grandfather was drunk and walked across a trailer park and shot up a trailer. And it was like a real thing. All of that was real, but then I take another song like my song Too Far From Good, and it was inspired by a situation, and I just kind of went with, and I just took it and told a story. It's like, what would be an interesting outcome to this story? And I wrote that song. So, it's about being real, but it's also about being able to tell a realistic story, I guess. But I don't know. It's like you want to be real, and you want to be honest, and then you can tell a story based on that real story. You can tell a new story based on this real situation and a real event.
Right. So, going back to that storytelling aspect, did that start at an early age? You know, like obviously we talked about kind of both of our backgrounds, like enjoying the creative aspect of being able to create whatever that, and I'll use content very loosely, you know, like music is content, songwriting is content, videos is content. Did you just naturally gravitate towards that storytelling aspect at an early age?
Absolutely. I was like, man, damn, I didn't even realize I was going to get into this, but I was like probably 6 or 7, and I was in like daycare after school and stuff, and I remember this one thing somebody showed me. So it was like a piece of paper, and you draw on one side, and you close the paper and draw on the other, and match it, and you can make an animation out of it. And so I started making animations out of that, and then I found out about those like little like notepads, and I would draw and I'd make full animations out of it and do it. And that to me, I was like telling a story in the notepad. You know, I would make things happen and tell a story with stick figures, right?
Yeah.
And then it became like I would like use my notebooks at school, and I would write down short stories. I'd come up with stories. Normally it plagiarized something I'd already seen,
right.
But it kind of, I would create new things on that. And the next thing you know, come high school, I'm writing stories that are completely original,
right?
And just inspired by things. And I loved storytelling. I loved doing that from when I was a kid. As soon as I could start coming up with stories, obviously for a lot of kids, they start playing with action figures and then they move on to something else. For me, I started playing with action figures and then I started coming up with stories for the action figures, and I started writing down stories. And then next thing you know, I was doing guitar lessons, and I wrote a couple of songs when I was doing guitar lessons because I wanted to tell stories. And now I don't have those songs written down anywhere. I don't remember what they were about. I think one of them was about Jesus, but I would write songs.
Right.
And no, I've always loved telling stories, and I always knew that I wanted to be a storyteller first and foremost. So whether it was with film or theater or music or anything, any kind of artistic outlet, I wanted to tell stories. And I've always loved doing that. So that's why I think a lot of my songs aren't just about talking about feelings or things that I am or things that someone else is. And it's literally a beginning, middle, and an end in telling a story. Even with one of our newer ones called The Devil in My Eye, it's in like 10 lines we tell a story, because there's not that many lyrics in that one. It's like, how can we take this interesting situation and then fit it down into the right amount of lyrics to tell the story in a meaningful way that doesn't feel, I guess, too literal, you know?
Right.
But no, absolutely, I love telling stories. I've always loved it. So
kind of, you know, obviously when you got here, we talked a little bit about your backstory to kind of give me an idea and kind of inspiration of what I want to talk to you about. You know, you and me kind of have very similar backgrounds of how we kind of got in the creative world. You know, like my background's more, I picked up a camera at the age of 12 and started doing that, you know, and I would assume you're pretty similar to that in terms of the creative aspect. So like, when you first started and went to your parents, went to your dad, went to anyone and said, "Hey, I want to do this," how was the reception to that?
Oh man, my dad. So I'll tell you, I used to play football, and I thought it was okay, but my heart wasn't into it. And so when I would really try, I did pretty good, but my heart just wasn't into it, and I was third string, barely got any play time and any of that. And I was so nervous because I thought that's what my dad wanted me to do, was to play football like he did. He was a big high school star at football, and he went and played, you know, and got into university, and it was a huge thing. And I love football, and he loves football. And I remember I dreaded it the day that I quit football without telling him, and I was like, I'm going to have to call him and tell him tonight, you know. And he was out of town on a work trip, and I called him, and I said, Dad, I quit football today. And I thought he was going to be so mad at me, and he wasn't even upset. He said, you need to find what you're passionate about and just do it. I don't care what it is, but you need to find your passion and do it as well as you can and put everything into it. And when I told him that I wanted to do music and I wanted to do film and I want to do the arts, he's like, then do it. And then he's been my biggest number one supporter since I started doing it. And he comes to every show. He helps me write the songs. Even if he wasn't helping me write the songs, he'd be at every show. And when I started doing theater, he'd come out to the show. When I did a film festival, there was a film festival I got in when I was living in Florence, Alabama. There was a film festival I was in Enterprise, Alabama, and he drove down to Enterprise to meet me there to see my movie on the screen. And he has been my number one supporter all time, not even close. Anywhere I go, he's coming with me. And no, it was a wonderful reception. I'm very lucky that and blessed that I had a family that understood artistic expression and understood the passion behind it and was willing to bet on it, and to push it and support it. Even when, a lot of families, when they have a kid that wants to go to university for something in the arts, they're like, don't do that. Go into accounting, go into something, I guess, more sustainable. But they had the complete opposite reaction. And I think part of that is not because I just said that I wanted to do it, but I was, when I was in high school, I don't know if you were known as this guy, but like the film guy, the camera guy. People knew you because you would make videos and stuff. And that's what people knew me as in high school, as like the guy that would do like the music or the videos or the dances or anything that was like artistic. That's the guy. And you were that. I'm sure you were that guy.
Yeah, 100%. Like, one of the things, a little bit of my backstory, and I've told this to you. I'll drop my phone. I'll pick it up in a minute. But, see, I told you, this is going to be raw, real, and this is it, man.
I'm not complaining one bit.
But, like my story, so kind of the scenario you were talking about, like initially whenever I said, hey, I wanted to do video production or anything like that, they're like, okay, that's a good hobby, but you need to have a backup plan. You need to, like, hey, if you like the technology, do computer science, do IT, do something like that. I said, all right, well, I'm like, you know what, you're probably right. Like, I probably need to figure out something, but I dabbled in it, and I was like, it ain't it. Yeah, it's not it. I was like, I don't know. And then I just kept doing the video stuff, and I've heard people like from Alabama Public Television in Montgomery. We went and toured them one time, and we showed them videos. I don't remember how old I was. I may have been 13, 14 or whatever at the time, and they're like, okay, you're actually not bad. Like, at your age and you're doing this, like, you're not bad. Like, you're on the right track. And they're like, you can make a living out of this. And I think at that point, doing those tours and hearing from people that open their eyes, and
it's a push.
It is.
For them to say that.
And like, unfortunately, I remember this story. It was in 2012, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because once I say the story, you'll be like, yep, that makes sense. Me and my dad went to an Auburn football game, and we were not good. That was a year of 3-9. And tickets were like, they basically were paying people to kind of go.
2012, I bet, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2012. So we went there, and it was Auburn versus New Mexico State. And this was before they got the big video board, right?
Yep.
And so I was there, and I saw like the hype videos, and I told him, I said, hey, one day I'm going to do that. And he's like, all right. Well, fast forward, I was doing it, and he goes, well, you're right, you did it. And I said, I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
That's what we were talking about, Bama Jam, not too long ago.
Yeah.
And they had that side stage that Big Smo played on. And there was another guy that played. Now, Big Smo, he get up there. He doesn't play an instrument on stage. He's like, with the microphone, he's like rapping, country rock rap on stage and everything. There's another guy, I can't remember his name, but he played with an acoustic guitar and just sang. And my dad, at the time, I would play like at the house, and I was developing. Right. And my dad was like, you could do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'd love to see you up there at some point. And no, I haven't played a festival like Bama Jam yet. Playing something like Madison Fest and playing music and doing things where it makes it more legitimate. It's so cool to like realize that vision that he even had before I realized that it was something I wanted to really do, And I think that, I don't know, I think that that if you find that passion young, you got to foster it. I told him, we've talked about this many times over the last few years of working together on these songs and stuff. I told him, we're burning the boats. There is nothing else. I'm going to work a day job, right, and I'm going to do this till I die. Yeah. And I'm going to make it come hell or high water, and I don't care if it takes 10 years. I don't care how it takes 20 years. I will work. I'm content with working a whatever job while I do this. This is my main focus. And I mean, not to get into finances, but it makes up about half of my income is playing the music. So this is a job, and this is a career and a profession. And my bandmates, that's what I told them. I said, we're not just friends. We're not just people getting together to play covers at a bar in your hometown. This is a profession. I'm booking shows that are up in Nashville, over in Atlanta. As far as I can take it, that's where this is going. Yeah. And this is it. This is what I want to do, and this is what I know that I've known my whole life, that being an entertainer is what I was going to do. And by God, I don't give a damn what it takes. This is what we're doing. And, look, I work at my day job right now. I don't like to talk about it too much. I think that there's an ego about it, and I'm not afraid to admit that I have that ego. And everybody who does this has a little bit of that. That you don't want to admit that you work a day job, but we all do. And you know, I live in Valley, but I commute to Smith Station to work every single day, and I work at a restaurant called Cluck It Bucket in Smith Station.
Yep.
And you know what I do? I put my stickers, a stack of my stickers, and a stack of my business cards next to the other business cards that people leave up there, so that people who come in there will maybe grab one and go listen. And I'm not ashamed to admit that everyone's got to earn a living. And I've had the coolest thing I had, to give you an idea of how I feel about this, is I was in there working, I was at the counter, and I was having a particularly just kind of low day. I was like, man, I'm ready to go, you know, get off and go do whatever. And these two young guys that were about probably 20, 21 maybe, came up to the counter to pay. I'd never seen these guys in my life anywhere. They'd never been to one of my shows. They'd never followed me on anything. And he comes up to the counter, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Are you Kris Dewberry?" And I was like, yeah. I thought he maybe knew my sister or something. And I'm like, "That's me, man. You know, what's up? How you doing?" He's like, "Man, I just listened to your new song, Fine Grain, that came out." And he showed me on his phone. He's like, I was listening to this. And I was like, I was trying not to, I'm not worried. I told him, I was like, that's fucking crazy. and I turned around, and I checked them out and everything. I was like, man, thanks for listening to it, man. And thanks for saying something, you know, because that was, I turned around. I literally told my coworkers I got to step outside for a minute. I didn't go outside and like fucking cry. I went outside and called my dad. And I was like, Dad, you're not going to believe what just happened. Because that's how it starts, is one person you don't know. You know, it's one thing for someone to see me at a show, and I talk to everybody at my shows, and then they see me out and they're like, hey man, it's good to see you. It's a different thing for someone you've never met to come up and recognize you through your music and your art. And in that one instance, and that's happened once since then, and that was a few months ago, because that song came out in December, so I think that was in January or February that happened. And and it's happened one time since then, and it's like, that's the push. Because I think it's so real when someone hears your music telling real shit that you're dealing with and going through, and they can connect to it, and then they see you in person. It's just it's the connection that happens that you can't get when you're already big. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the great,
it's humbling.
And I kind of going off of that. I mean, for someone just to come up to you like that, I mean, that already gives you validation. Like if you were already thinking like, you know, like, I mean, we all have that doubt in us, right? We all have that of just like, hey, do I just need to like hang it up? Do I just need to make this more of a hobby? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? But then when you have someone come up like that, you're like, no, I'm meant to do this. I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to go this direction. Not only does this make me happy, people were seeing this and people were reacting to it. So, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that just kind of gave you that validation to keep going.
It didn't just give me the validation, man. I mean, that's part of it, but it was also just the honor that somebody, you know, he could have recognized me. I don't know how he recognized me, because I don't look anything like I did. Like, I got longer hair now. My beard's more full. I don't look like I did when we took the pictures for that single back in August of last year, and then I didn't release it till December.
Right.
But the fact that so that means to me, I think he probably clicked through. Maybe he pulled up my Instagram or something. But the fact that he not only recognized me, but was willing to say it to me, because he could have just seen that and then left and be like, I think that was the guy from the. They were listening to it that day, and so for him to actually come up and say something to me was so humbling. I'm like, finally, like that's a moment. I've been releasing music and recording music for 2.5 years before that. And that's not a long time when you think about career rise, especially in music.
Yeah.
People will look at that and say, that's not so bad. But when you're doing it and you're grinding day in and day out to make it happen, to have that moment, finally, it's like a weight is lifted where you're like, somebody recognized me. And if that one person recognized me, how many others recognized me but they just didn't say something to me, you know? And it just it really is a confidence boost, a morale boost. I think I turned around, and it wasn't long after that we wrote one of our other songs. I think Rose Thigh Lady wasn't too long after that. It was around that time. And I think it lights a fire under you, man. It gets you excited.
No, I mean, have
people done that for you, for like Phoenix City Boys and Mudflap and all that?
Well, like, so obviously, like the whole story of the Phoenix City Boys, the first video, everyone was, you know, bad about it. Everyone hated it, right? And it was just basically a whole shit show. Now, again, talking about it candidly, we were in high school. We were just having a good time, right? And then we came up with part 2 and part 3. And then, like, again, during COVID, like we talked about, we ended up, or I needed a creative outlet because, like, we were told just to sit at the house, don't go anywhere or anything like that. So, I needed a creative outlet, and I had a little bit of extra money kind of in my bank account. And I said, you know what? I'm bald as hell, and I like hats, and I like spending money on hats. But I have this name, Mudflap. I'm like, I think it'd be kind of cool to do something with it. I don't know what. Like, I like being outside. I like creating stuff outside because there's a beauty in outside. Like, there's a beauty. Like, right now, as it's raining, I'm seeing the water coming off the tin roof, and I'm like, man, that'd be a cool slow-mo shot. That'd be this, that'd be that. So, like, I'm already thinking that. So, like, while I'm talking to you, I have in my peripheral, I'm like, that would be a gorgeous shot. That'd be a good shot. That'd be this and that. So, like, whenever I came up with this idea, I ran it by my parents and everyone. I said, I'm thinking about making like a brand. And they're like, okay, we'll do it. And so I did it. I came up with Mudflap Outdoors. And again, it just gave me a reason to go out and fish, go out and do this, go out and do that. Because, like, when I worked in athletics, I didn't have time to do anything. I just worked in athletics, went home, probably had a glass of bourbon, and went about my day. And so as time progressed, whenever I started, like, honestly, when I did actually, when I first did this podcast, I had a lot of people go, hey man, you may be on to something here. And I said, okay. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm just talking. And they're like, look, I think you're on to something. And I said, all right, well, I mean, hell, I'll keep doing it. And so we just kind of went with it. And so, and again, it's kind of like that validation of, like, obviously everything costs money, like to be able to put out the music, to put out, like, for me, put out the podcast, to have the service, the website, everything costs money, to produce the hats, to do this, to come up with the designs, talk to people, X, Y, and Z. So, like, to have that validation, it's like, even if it's one person, it's like, look, I may have spent $1,000 all up to this point, but that $1,000 was worth it for that one person.
Every penny, man. Every bit of money you put into this stuff is 100% worth it. I've never questioned any of the purchases when it comes to this passion. Yeah, not once. Now, in the moment, I've been like, that hurts, but I'm gonna do it. But
100%.
But I've never purchased any of this stuff or paid for any of this the posting subscriptions for, like, DistroKid is who I go through, and not once have I ever been like, do I want to? Nah, it's I don't care how much it costs. If I do care how much it costs if I can. I mean, if you don't have the money, you don't have it. But if I have the money in my bank account to pay for it right then, then everything else be damned. I work at a restaurant. I've had this where I've, like, bought something that I needed for this, and then I have spent a week eating one meal because I get a free meal at the restaurant, and that's what I ate for that week because that's what you got to do. Yeah, and if you don't go through, right now I've been doing pretty good as far as, like, finances and stuff go. I'm really blessed for the situation I'm at now, but it hadn't always been that way. And if you go through all that shit and you just wade through the shit and you just stay true to what you're doing and you don't quit on it. Because here's the deal. If you've already waded through 5 miles of shit and then you give up, well, then you waded through 5 miles of shit for nothing. But if you wade through 5 miles of shit and then you keep wading, you go through 10 more miles, you're at 15, but then it happens, well, then all of a sudden anything you went through was worth what happened. Right. And that doesn't happen the other way around if you give up. Yeah. So I'll be playing music. I don't give a damn if I'm 80 years old and I'm destitute playing on the sidewalk. I'm going to be playing music till I die. And that's all there is to it. Whether it's playing to fans or playing to people walking down the street, I don't care. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I can say that because I've been down low to where you're, like, on the street. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I know. It's like I've been there. A lot of people, they go into this kind of stuff and they think, I'm going to do this till whatever, and then they go through one little bit of hardship, and next thing you know, they quit and they decide to go just do their accounting or day job, whatever. I think about people like David Allan Coe,
Yeah.
who, like, you know, he was selling CDs out of his trunk in Walmart parking lots and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do.
No,
That's what you got to do.
I mean, 100%. I mean, you know, like what got, like, I always enjoyed music, right? I enjoyed it. I didn't know why I enjoyed it, but like, so my papa, before he passed away a year ago, right around, I think it was probably about like a year ago, something like that. And, but like, so he was all into music. Like back in the day, he did all the karaoke stuff. He did that. I mean, my dad was basically his sound guy. So like, it's kind of just funny. But like he had a lot of guitars, and as he got older, he ended up giving all his grandkids and his own kids like a guitar. And so I got a guitar, like all of us did. I mean, when I say a lot, it was like he had like 10 guitars he gave away. And so I had one, everyone else had one. Then COVID happened, and I was like, what are you going to do? I needed a creative outlet. So I was like, it's just hanging on the wall at my house at the time. And I was like, fuck it. I'm like, I'll just bring it down and see what happens. And I played 2 chords, sent him a video. It was the worst 2 chords ever.
Yep.
Fingers weren't even calloused up. I mean,
man.
Yeah.
You ever bled on one of yours when you were trying to play?
Oh, yeah.
That's just awful.
So I did that, sent it to him, and then like not even like a week or 2 later, he was like, hey, I have 2 more for you. I was like, all right.
Yeah,
and then
right.
like 2 months later, he gave me a lot of music equipment. I went, I was like, all right, Papa, like, I appreciate it, but I don't know where I'm going to put all this, but I'll take it. Come on, bring it on. And then, you know, then after that, I got the bug, and now I have like 7 guitars at the house.
Yep. I've got 2 12 strings. So I've got one issue with one of them is there's a crack in the neck. I got to fix that. And then the other issue is the saddle, not the saddle, the fret base. I forget what it's called, but it's coming up. And so I'm gonna fix one of them. I'm gonna fix both of them eventually, but I want to work with the 12 string some more. But I wound up giving a couple of mine away because I had so many. I had no space, and like with my bass guitar, I had a friend of mine who wanted to learn, and I said, man, I hadn't played that bass in years, and this was before I realized I was gonna start recording music, and so I gave him the bass as a gift. I was like, here, man, I want you, if you really want to learn, and I believe in you. He's a friend of mine. I was like, take this bass. Learn it, play it, whatever, and we'll meet back again in a year or so about it. And then I forgot about the bass. You know, I was like, he's got it, and I didn't play it enough. Now, if I wish I'd known, I could do like indie stuff on my own. You know, because I played bass in high school for the marching band and jazz band, and damn. But it was cheap. It was like at the $80 bass at the pawn shop. It wasn't nothing crazy. But man, no, I think having a father I think good fathers and most fathers, when they see a passion, especially, are you the oldest of your?
No, I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest, but you're a boy. So when they see one of their boys have a passion that they drive for, they get hyped more than you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. Like, I'll do something cool on stage, or I'll hit a note right, and I feel it, and I know I feel it, and I'll be like, that was good. I feel good. And then after the show, he'll be like, man, he's like excited about it. And when something hits right, he feels it before anybody else. And he's taken, and I'm not saying this to diss on anybody, but like my mom will come to a show, or I would show my mom a song that I wrote that was absolute ass. And I'd show it to her, and she'd be like, oh, it's good. It's, she's supportive.
Yeah, for
she's
sure.
Like, oh, it's good. But I show it to my dad, and he's like, come on, man.
Right.
But when I hit something right, he feels it before anybody else feels it. And man, I think, especially as a son, it's the most validating feeling to have your father acknowledge you. You know what I mean? It's like fucking right. You know what I mean? I'm like,
100%.
He'll acknowledge me, and then I'll go hit the gym for 2 hours and just like, grind it. I feel like the best I've ever felt. And no matter what it was, like, I didn't mention it to you yet. But I used to box.
Okay.
That's right. Like, when I was in college, I was about 250 pounds at 5'10", overweight as hell. And I was like, I had been watching UFC, and I was like, I want to train. I want to do something, and I want to lose weight and compete, even just once, just so I can prove that I can do it. Yeah. As like a drive. And I turned around, and I lost the 50 pounds from exercise and diet. And then it was right after COVID, and I got in touch with a boxing coach, and he trained me for like 6 months, and I had already been training on my own, But when you're training on, you're still really, you're sloppy. You only learn, without a coach there in front of you. So you're going to be really sloppy. And he taught me a lot of things. And I went in there and I fought. And I think I've got this picture on my phone where I had gone and done a boxing match, and it's still his cover photo. But before the match, I show up. I think when you're doing something professional, especially like a sport, you should show up dressed professionally. Don't you show up? I was wearing like nice fitted pants with a tucked in button down shirt. That's how I think you should, even at amateur boxing level. I showed up. I took a picture in front of the stage, and it's still his cover photo on Facebook.
Really?
He made it his cover photo. He loves it, and I won that fight, and especially when you're fighting for something, man, there's such a cool feeling. I wrote one song kind of talking about that and other things, and I don't put it in my songs as much about the boxing, but I was such a, it's such a good feeling to work hard for something and make it happen. And I'll never forget after the fight, we celebrated at the hotel. It was in Grenada, Mississippi. And at the hotel, like I had bought Whistle Pig to celebrate. And there's a picture of my dad with the belt that I won over his shoulder. And he looks so damn happy. He's right there. He's smiling right now. But
I know, grinning ear to ear over here behind the camera.
Him, man. He's my biggest number one, man. I love my father. I do anything for him. Whenever I have any philosophical questions or about questions about life in general, like he's the only person I turn to. And I think that's a trust that's built up when you have a good dad in your life who's willing to watch you fail but help you rebuild to succeed the next time. It's such a rare thing because I see so many people, they just kind of, they're going at it alone, and I'm just fortunate to have someone who's willing to tell me the tough answers. Yeah. And he's not a yes man,
Yeah.
And that's why he made the perfect songwriting partner, because he knows what sounds good. And he watches a lot of live music. He's big about going and seeing live music live. Local bars or big festivals or one-time theater performances, whatever it is. And he's a walking encyclopedia. So when we write songs together, the way that we do it is I'll usually come into it with an idea about kind of what I want to write about, either subject matter or artists who have been inspired by it, kind of like we talked about with CCR. And he will, he'll sit down with me and he'll say, listen, sometimes we'll go into it with nothing. And he'll say, hey, just let's write something funky, with a cool funk to it. And he'll say, give me just a cool rhythm. And I came up with Hypnotize, the rhythm for that. And then we'll start coming up with ideas and subject matter and things. And what he'll be doing is while I'm sitting there kind of mumbling, singing gibberish to myself to kind of get in that mindset, he'll start writing down sentences. He'll just write sentences. They don't rhyme with nothing. They don't do anything like that. He'll write down sentences. This is a cool thing to say. This is a cool thing to say about that. This is a cool thing to say about that thing. And just keep going. And then I'll look at those sentences and we'll come up with words that rhyme, that fit right. And that's how we'll write a song. And I'll say this phrase right here and then the next phrase and so on and so forth. And he will, he'll come up with cool ass lyrics. Like, what was one that we did? We wrote a song called Livin'. I eventually took the initial version down because I wasn't crazy about it, but the studio version or the album version for the acoustic album I left up. And a pigeonhole, talking about leaving my money in a pigeonhole. And a pigeonhole is basically like digging a hole in a tree where you stash shit, and it's where it's like a treasure chest for a person, basically. I didn't even think about that, but he came up with that idea, and I put it into a song, and now it's an interesting lyric because you don't hear pigeonhole in songs often, and that's how we come up with that. Or like, I'm trying to think of another one we've done where it just worked out, like Hypnotized. I lived up in Muscle Shoals for a while.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm trying to come up with lyrics, and he came up with the idea of like, are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
So we're on good. like steady ground.
Yeah,
I got you. So I'm gonna let you do that.
Good, man.
So we're on the. It's cool. We're cool.
Look,
brother.
hey,
So
but
look.
I wasn't kidding. Dude. We're so podunk doing this podcast.
It's so
but
cool,
dude,
man.
okay, yeah.
So the idea of like standing, like the idea of standing on, you're on uneven ground. You're standing on ground that's moving that you're not standing firm on, right? He came up with the idea of standing on shifting shoals. Shoals. I lived in the Muscle Shoals. He was like, let's incorporate that idea of like the shoals. And so the lyric in that song is, I've been standing on shifting shoals, and it's the muscle shoals, and the ground was uneven because I was going through a hard time and I was trying to figure things out. And he came up with that lyric, and I put that in the song. And that's something I didn't come up with on my own.
Okay.
And so some of my best lyrics have been a collaborative effort with my father because he's a walking encyclopedia, and that's just one of those examples. It's in almost every song. It's something like that.
Right.
I've written a few songs like "Love Your Life." I wrote that one just me because I wrote that for him, and I didn't want him.
Yeah.
I wanted this is for you.
Right.
You don't. I don't want you to work on this. But then other songs he comes up with. Most of the songs he comes up with a lot of great lyrical ideas, and I think like. A lot of people, there's a thing about having a co-write. Some people love having co-writes. Other people's they're like, I want to have full whatever. For me, I'm lucky that my co-write is someone who knows me this well and who's who I'm basically like a clone of. And so when we're writing together, and he comes with his own ideas, it just works because it's like the thought that I should have had.
Yeah.
You know, that's a long tangent.
No.
Yeah,
You're good, man.
Look,
Look, no, I mean it goes back to that support system, and you have to have that good support system. And at this point, I think we have to acknowledge that shirt that you're wearing.
Oh man,
that is a support system.
I wasn't
right
gonna
there.
say anything because I wanted him to just see it.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say it. But here's what I'll say. Look, Jake Carroll. I don't know if you can see it so well. Hold on one second. I'm gonna lift this up. So
Go on with it. You gotta throw some Carroll. Throw on some Carroll.
Here's the deal, man. He's a good friend of mine, and I love him to death, man. He's so cool. He came out to one of my shows, and he came out to a couple of my shows, and the second one he did over at Wrestling Post in Opelika, he bought my T-shirt, and then he went up and played in between one of my sets. I was like, dude, this guy's so cool. And then I didn't know he was going to do this, and he didn't say anything to me. He didn't text me or nothing. I got on. And he had said he had been posting about how he was on the Mud Flap Outdoors and everything and on the podcast and all that. And so I want to show support. I didn't know you yet. And I was like, just to support my friend, I'm going to go make sure I watch it, give it a view, like it, maybe throw a comment in there, just whatever.
Right.
And I get on there and I see throw on some Dewberry, and I was like, this motherfucker, my man. So look, before this, I didn't tell him especially I told myself back then, I said, if I'm ever on a podcast, I'm going to make sure to wear a shirt that says something about him. Maybe my initial thought was buy one of his T-shirts and wear it. But instead, when I found out I was going to be on this podcast, I'm like, I don't even know if he has an online store, and I'm not sure about all that. But I was like, you know what would be even funnier if I get a shirt that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Throw on some Carol. So I put on. I went and bought this shirt. I said, I want you to make it the same way, throw on some Carol. But on the back side, which is my favorite song of Jake Carroll, is Remember What Your Mama Said.
Yes.
I love that song. It's literally, so when I play shows, I have my own soundtrack that'll play in between of songs that are in my vein and similar. And I made sure to put in there, Remember What Your Mama Said. So it plays every show. I make sure it plays every show. Man, like, I got this T-shirt made. I picked it up this week to wear just for this podcast. And so, Jake, I appreciate you, brother. Like, I hope you love this. And just so you know, because I'm hoping you'll watch this before you text me or contact me, I got a shirt, throwing some Carol shirt, just for you. So I'm gonna give it to you, but I want you to see this first. When I saw it, that, I shot him a message like, dog, you are so real for that, man. You are so cool. I appreciate that. Like, you wouldn't believe. Yeah. And so I made sure to get this for him because I think he's gonna get a kick out of this, mainly because I want him to just I want to know that he sees this and just laughs. He gets a kick out of it.
I already know it. Like, I mean, obviously. Like, realistically, what's going to happen is we're going to have the podcast out, and then we're going to have the song out. You know, one of the first songs that we recorded in that building all the way back there. There was about 4 of us in there in a small jammed up corner.
That's
like
right.
I should have had my GoPro just to take a photo and like, look, this is the behind the scenes. We're all just sitting there just. Elbows to assholes. Tight. I mean, that's basically what we were at. And I mean, I have to ask. Was that a good time or what?
I loved it, man. I thought it was so cool. You know what they do in Hollywood studios? You know what they do? Because I've been on the set.
Yeah.
I filmed, I was an extra for a movie last year. It's like Fly Me to the Moon with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. And I got to meet them. It was really cool. And basically, they take a room any room that you can think of, like if you were going to film a shoot in a bedroom or a living room or a shed or something, they build it onto a set and they make it really big with extended spaces. So that way you have all the room for the gear and equipment and stuff. And, you know, it gives you an appreciation because I film a lot of my own stuff and it's tight. It's tight, but they don't have to worry about that in those big Hollywood sets, man. They just build they build it on a studio. It's not even like every bedroom you see in just about every major motion picture is not a bedroom. It's literally built on a sound stage.
Right.
And they make it extra big for all the equipment and gear and stuff. And I think they use like a greater depth of field to make it look, you know,
for
and
sure.
blur, and so it feels tighter in the shot. So, yeah, man, I loved it, man. I had a great time. I'm so used to that because I shoot my own videos. Like, I have like 3 music videos for some of those singles I put on that first album, and those are all shot at the house in different rooms of the house to make it look different, like a different locale, you know. And I'm so used to just kind of having to move in tight spaces, like the Old Ones and Cold Ones session we did at that new liquor store in Valley, the Old Ones and Cold Ones. We did when we shot in there. It was one thing if it was just me, but I had the whole band in there,
right? And
so we're having like the camera's real tight. I'm having to like move around the camera, and but it's so cool when it comes out and you look at it and you're like, it looks a lot deeper than it really was. You know, it's such a cool feeling, man.
No, well,
I loved it, man. I love playing back.
Well,
there.
I'm glad you enjoyed Studio Mudflap because that is not Hollywood. This is Phoenix City, Alabama at its finest. Right
Studio Do's the same way, baby. It's all tight and we just make it happen.
Man, get it right, get it tight. I got you.
That's what it is, man. That's all it is just do it. You know, like. You just got to go out there and make it happen. It doesn't matter what's in your way. It doesn't matter who's saying what. If you want to make it happen, you got to do it yourself. And that's like when I formed this band, like Madison Fest where we played, the way that I found out about Madison Fest and got in contact, like I didn't know somebody who knew somebody. I didn't hassle somebody who knew somebody. I went there and I spent a few days researching, and I went to like the Georgia website, the Georgia state official website, to find events that happen throughout the year because they'll post them if they register with them. And I found Madison Fest along with like 40 others, and I cold call emailed all of them, just saying, I'm Kris Dewberry of Kris Dewberry and Lower Todd. We're Southern rock and rhythm and blues country band, yada yada yada. Here's who I've worked with. Here's what I'm doing. I would love to play your event. You know, I'd love the opportunity to play your event. It would mean the world to me. And here's a link to my EPK, which is my website, right? Best regards, whatever. And I sent that out to about 40 different places in Georgia, 40 different specifically like festivals and events in Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee and Mississippi and all of them. I heard back from Madison Fest. They were interested in having us. I followed up email, and that's how you make it happen. And the next thing you know, we're playing Madison Fest, and we're going to hopefully play there again next year and play a later slot even, and we'll be even better with new songs. We're always writing songs and material, and so that's how you do it, man. You gotta be willing to get on there and just make it happen. You can't. It's not going to happen just from hoping somebody hears you at a bar. You got to be emailing. You got to be expanding, building, working, writing, everything, man. And you know, I see a lot of potential and talent all around here, man. Like, you know, I want to open up Studio Do as an actual recording studio, video production, music production, all of that. And I want to be able to tap into that local talent because I think a lot of people don't have that direction. To like, how do I get to that next level? What's the next level? I'm like, well, right now you're just playing solo acoustic. You need to get a band behind you. Take a year, if it takes that long, and just build a band, build a brand, and then make it happen. And that it's all up to you. It's all up to you. No one's going to do it for you. And you know that through Mudflap Outdoors. I mean, we're literally at your place filming back here in the Mudflap studio shed, and it's great. And you're one of those real people who's making it happen. You know, you're bringing this kind of culture to the area that doesn't exist. And nobody's doing that kind of thing. Be something that nobody else is doing, man. That's how you're going to make it happen. Be a John Boy Story, a Jake Carroll. You know, be one of these guys that stands out on the music scene, or like you on the podcast, film, rap, whatever it is. do your thing and do it to the best of your ability, be wholly original, and then make the calls, make it happen, finance, take out a loan. I don't give a shit what it is. If it takes it to work, it takes it to work. Because at the end of the day, if you hit it big, you're not going to think about all those little things that you had to do to make it happen. Those 1,000 little things you had to do, you're going to think about, I'm here and I made it. And how did I make it? I put up with the bullshit and I made it happen. And I didn't fold or bend on my morals or my creed or any of that. You know, and I think you're doing a great job doing that, man, for real.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, well, I mean, first off, it warmed my heart, and I already know it warmed my dad's heart, you know, for you just immediately, right when you walked in, you were like, hey, I did my research. I understood what Mud Flap Outdoors was all about. I understood what the podcast was all about. I understood what Jake was doing. I understood what this was doing and all that. So kudos to you to doing the research. And I think that's 90% of whatever you want to do, like in the music industry, you know, content, whatever the case may be, you need to do enough of the research going into it. I mean, obviously, you can go in like, you know, balls to the wall and just figure out, you know, throw shit at the wall and say, hey, it may stick, it may not. But like, you want to have that educated guess. You want to understand, you know, your demographic of what you're trying to accomplish and kind of go that direction. And so, you know, like there's a lot of things that me and my dad were working on, you know, and I'm happy to say, you know, like one of the things we're working on is another form of Mud Flap Outdoors. It's basically Mud Flap Outdoors is the parent, and then you have like a little branch, a little root off of it, and you know,
it's like that Eagle Rare and Buffalo Trace you were talking about. Yeah,
basically, you know, bringing it back to bourbon in that regard. Well, first off, brother, cheers.
Hey man, to you, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
For real.
Man, this Blanton's is good.
I'm working on Buffalo Trace right now. I already cleared the Blantons. But.
Well, I need to catch up then. Oh my Lord! But like, you know, like one of the things we're trying to do is, you know, we have a love for the outdoors, but relatively speaking, we're the average Joe. We call ourselves Bob. Bob is the average Joe, average John Boy, whatever you want to call him. You know, guy who loves the outdoors, but you know what? Maybe we can't afford it. Maybe we can't do this. Maybe we can't do that. But you know what? We're still going to go outside and have a good time. And so, like, one of the things we're going to do is, you know, we're going to review, like, different firearms, different things and all that. And we're going to make it within a budget of, like, hey, because at the end of the day, look, if you go outside and go shoot a deer, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a $1,500 gun or if it's a $200 gun. Ammunition goes in the gun goes bang. Animal game is down. Like, that's basically it, you know, and that's our thing of what we're trying to accomplish, you know.
So I haven't been hunting since I was a kid.
Okay.
I like to fish.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it, but I like to do it. It's like golf.
Neither are
it's
us.
like golf. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at golf whatsoever.
Right.
I took like 2 hours the other day to go hit the range, just trying to, you know, even up a little bit, just improve a little bit. But I love doing it. You know what I mean? That's one of those things I'm like, look, I'd love to go hunting with you guys because I'm not good at it, you know, just because I haven't done it since I was a kid. And even when I was a kid, I was more like I was tagging along with my dad, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to go because I've watched so many videos and I've seen it, and I'm a good shot. Like, I'm a great shot. I've had range time, and I've had range time at my friend's place and, you know, real range time.
Right.
Like, I'm a good shot. Clay shooting and all of that. I'd love to actually go out and go hunting with you guys because that would be fucking awesome.
Dude,
but
we're awful. Well, when I say awful, I have to just go like I went with Seth not too long ago with him and his dad. We went turkey hunting, and within like I'm stretching this a little bit, but like within 10 minutes, it was like, all right, we're already on a turkey. Like, shit, all right, this is kind of cool. But but again, I like fishing because I don't really like getting up at like 3:30 in the morning and doing all that stuff. But like, I love anything outdoors. I may not be good at any of it. That's also Bob. Yeah, none of us are good at it.
The best part about fishing is like, I'll go out there. You can't put a speaker on because it'll disturb everything. Yeah. But like an earplug in, and I'm just in my element, just hanging out. I'm hanging out whether I'm bass fishing or I'm throwing something down the river over at the West Point Dam. I don't give a shit. My brother and I, we go out. My brother Tyler and I, we go out and we'll just literally just throw in and just bullshit for a few hours and smoke a Black and Mild or something. And we don't care, man. We're just hanging out, you know. No, I love it, man. I love being outside. I love the outdoors. I love sitting on the back porch, especially when it's like raining a little bit with some wind. It's something cool, man. I was looking out my back window the other day. Listen, I don't know how long you were planning for this podcast to go.
No, we're going. We're having a good time.
I'm telling you, I'm good for whenever, man. I will stay here all day. I did a podcast before where I was like, I ran the podcast, and we would go for sometimes an hour and a half to like 4 hours. I'm not saying I'm going to hold you for 4 hours. I'm just saying for whenever, you know.
Look, do you see the bottles of bourbon we got here? Look, we got cigars.
Look,
like,
I'm
we
sitting
good.
out there. I'm sitting out there. Mine, I couldn't get mine to relight because I suck. But I was sitting out there and I was looking out my window, and there was something. There's some houses back there, but you know, there's so much foliage back here in Alabama, and there's so much green. The fog had set low where I couldn't see anything past, you know, maybe a football field, you know, 100 yards. And it looked like a damn rainforest, and I was like, "Man, I'm in the heart of it's like they call like God's country.
Oh
it's
yeah,
like beautiful.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful greenery, and I love it. And you know, I've been to Boston, I've been to New Orleans, I've been to L.A., Las Vegas, and I love going and traveling to these cities. And I hope one day to take my music will take me there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I can go there and get paid to be there. You know?
Right, yeah.
But there's something about coming home and being home. You know, like when I first moved back home to Valley, I felt depressed. So, you know, when I wrote those first two songs, I played Changing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a fiance, and we were together for a long time. And I loved her, and she loved me, but we did not fit. You know, it just is what it is. We literally fit everything outside of, I guess, an intellectual base. And we fought a lot, and I became someone I didn't like. And she became someone she didn't like, and she'll tell you that. And we split. And it was hard, man. It was a year after we became engaged, we split. And it hurt, and it was hard, and I wrote that music. And it wasn't long after that, about a year later, I moved back home. And we had gotten back together, and we split right after I had moved back home. And I initially made the call. I said, "Look, this ain't working. And it is what it is." We had broken up, gotten back together 9 months later, and then we broke up about a year after that. And I was like, you know, I love you, but it's just not working. And it is what it is. And we split. And I was so lost in what I was supposed to be. I didn't realize, I was like, who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? You know, not that like, oh, what am I going to do? But more like, where do I go from here? What do I do? And I'm going to say this or my wife will get pissed. But I love my wife. And my wife and I, we've been together for years. And she is so supportive of what I'm doing. And she is my... Look, if my dad's my number one supporter because he's been there since day one,
right?
She's right there at him. She loves what I do. She loves my music. She loves my songs. She like doing the podcast. I texted her today. I said, "Look, I didn't know how long it was gonna be. I was like, maybe this guy is the kind of guy that's just like get in, shoot the songs, do the podcast, get out, right?" And so I was like, maybe I'll be here for like an hour and a half, right? We've been here for a few hours. I'm having a great time, and I texted her and I said, you know, I'm going to be here, you know, for a while. And she said, okay, I love you. I hope you have a great time. I hope you do well. And she's nothing but well wishes from her because she's so supportive of what I'm doing. But to take it back, I was in a rough place when I had moved back home. And I wasn't looking for anything. You know, the whole beauty queen, I had met a girl and we had talked for a few weeks. That was in between. You know, I just met her. I wasn't looking for nothing, but I met her and we started talking. That's why it didn't hurt me as much when I found out she sent my best friend nudes. And just to clarify, he didn't ask for them. He didn't ask for them. They had known each other and they messed around. And she had reached out to him to offer them. And he said, do what you want to do. And the moment she sent him, he called me, you know, because he's a real one. And you know, it wasn't long after that I'd met her. I'd met Masha at like the gym. And you know, she saw me working in the damn.
Oh,
you know,
okay, yeah, all right. Thunder and lightning, I got you.
Listen. I have gained 30 pounds and lost 30 pounds in between when we met and where we are right now. I'm at 200. I was at 205 when we met, right after I'd fought my second fight.
Right.
And she saw it, but no, for real though, she I had noticed her.
Yeah.
Because when I walked in the gym, she was on the treadmill, and the treadmill's face away from the front door. And so I'd walk in, I just saw her, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna talk to her. And I went in and worked out and everything, and she noticed me, and I love this rain, by the way.
Dude, well, first off, it feels amazing because I was sweating my ass off yesterday.
The breeze lately is nice.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Look, it was snowing in Florence a few years ago, iced in for 2 weeks in snow. And then after that dissipated, within a week, it was 82 degrees.
Yeah.
And I took a video. I was like, this is what it's like to live in Alabama.
Yeah.
But I went and talked to her and everything. We talked, and I had introduced myself. My voice was gone because I was playing shows at the time. Mm-hmm. And my voice was completely gone. And I said, with a scratchy-ass voice, like, my name's Kris. It's nice to meet you. I just wanted to come and say hi to you. We'd noticed each other a few times. And I'll give it 2.5 years later, she's my wife.
Yeah.
And I love her to death.
Yeah.
And anyway, I keep going back and forth. But, I was going through some shit. And I wrote those songs, and I moved back home, and I split with her, and I couldn't be, at the time, I was like, this is not what I saw and visioned for myself. At the time, I was like, I'm graduating from university. I moved here to get away from my small town. I'm ready to go to L.A., Atlanta, hopefully, was the goal, or Albuquerque, New Mexico, wherever it took me, and I'm going to hit it big in the film industry. But, life had different plans, and I said, I let my lease die out at the apartment I was at instead of renewing it. And my dad was like, why don't you come home? This is home base. It always has been. We'll figure out what your next move is. And when I moved back home, and I figured out it was music, because it was something, I felt it. When I wrote those 2 songs, Changing and Too Far From Good, I wrote those 2 songs. I was like, there's something here. Mm-hmm. It's not polished. It's not where it's going to end up being, but there's something to build on here that's like stronger than any foundation of any other art that I have in my repertoire, in my arsenal. And we started tapping into that and writing songs and working. We had a plan built out, and we're following it. Now, he and I were both, ignorant of what it takes to make it in the industry. So our plan was like a 2-year plan. More like a 10 or 15-year plan is what it is. But the plan was there. Play local shows, play at venues that always have people. Play places that already have people there. Don't try to bring people in because you're new. Play places that have people and get those people to follow you. And lo and behold, a few years later, I've recorded a song. I've recorded a single, Fine Grain, with Grammy Award-winning producer Larry Mitchell. I've cut music with a Grammy Award-winning producer. I've got a band together. We're playing festivals. We're playing big time shows. Just stick with it, And I don't think that would have happened had I had stayed in Florence or moved to Albuquerque or New York or Los Angeles or New Orleans, wherever it was that the film was going to take me. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be working a film job for 17 hours of the day, tired as hell, just struggling to pay rent, living with somebody who I wasn't compatible with. That's what I would have been doing versus playing the music that I love, married to a good woman that I love, and doing a podcast with you here on a damn Saturday and having a great time. It wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't have been myself, and I wouldn't have turned into the man that I'm glad I am today, And that's the whole thing, man. And I'm not trying to preach to you. I'm just telling you, and you know it. Mm-hmm. You know it. It just takes being true to yourself and doing what you're going to do and doing it real and doing it right, and that's what it takes. And I'm just happy to be here, man. I'll tell you, I'm so damn happy to be here. That's why I'm talking so much. It's like a combination of nervousness and excitement because I'm not nervous to talking to you because we've already talked for a little bit now, and I think you're fucking awesome. It's like a combination. It's like the idea of this is gonna be published,
Yeah, yeah.
But I love it, man. I love being here. I love doing all of this. I wouldn't trade it for anything. You could offer me any amount of money in the world, I wouldn't trade it, man, because this is priceless. I'm going to look at this in 50 years and be like, that was the first one. That was the one that I kicked off on. I'm so damn sentimental about shit like that.
Well, and that's why I started all of this, and in a minute we'll wrap up, and obviously we'll keep drinking bourbon and smoking cigars and bullshit and all that, listening to music, but you know, that's why I started all this. That's why I started the Broken Down Sessions, just Broken Down podcast. Is like I want people to be their authentic self, and I want them to be, you know, who they are, and you know, because I'm just me. Like, you know, obviously I'm 29, single, ladies. I'm out there. I'm available if y'all want me. If y'all don't.
Right.
I don't want you, so it's fine.
That's right. That's right. Only take what wants you.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, but again, it goes back to, you know, like a wise man once said, you know, like, look, man, I'm just like a fat girl at prom. I'm just happy to be here. You know what I mean? So like
for me it was the fat guy. Like I happened to have a girlfriend at the time of prom when I was in high school, senior prom. I was dating a good looking girl. I was like, I'm just happy to exist, baby. I'm
here.
I'm
alive.
all in, dog. We're here.
Dude.
Look. She started dancing with me, and I was like, this is what it feels like. I was like, dog, look, listen, you know, this is real.
Yeah.
We're drinking bourbon, smoking cigars. Yeah. I'm gonna say something that's a little bit inappropriate.
Like, it's
you
fine.
Cool with that? You gonna put it in there?
Come on, let's do it.
All right, look, she started dancing on me. I was like, first time I was ever chubbed out. The first time I was ever chubbed out, I was like, bro, we're in it. I'm telling you, I'm being so serious right now.
You know what? I'm gonna have to pull a Stone Cold. Goddamn, son, why'd you say that shit?
Look, let me tell you something. Come prom night, I had 1 beer, I had 2 beers.
What?
3 bears.
What?
4 bears.
What?
5 bears.
What?
And a Bloody Mary.
What?
and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. That's straight up what it was, man. I was having a great time, man. You couldn't tell me nothing. I walked home with we came home after I dropped her off at her place. You know, I come home and I was chest held high. I was like, I was on cloud. I might as well have been a UFC champion. You couldn't tell me nothing.
Man, right here, Kris Dewberry, a pimp with a limp. You know what? Look, man. Look, obviously we got bourbon, we got cigars. We're going to have a good time right now. But look, unfortunately, I got to close this out. I don't want to, but I got to close this out. Kris,
can I say one more thing?
Absolutely. But hey, cheers, brother.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say thanks again for having me, for real. This is an absolute honor for me. The first podcast I've ever been a guest on, and I gotta applaud you for everything that you're doing for this show, for music, for culture, and you know, I know you're Phoenix City boys in Phoenix City, but Auburn, Alabama, as a whole, man. I live over in Valley, and just all of it, man. I love what you're doing. I stand for what you're doing. And I appreciate you. And I'm not wearing it right now, but I mean, I showed up and played. And right before I was about to play, he said, "This is for you." And he gave me one of his hats, the Mud Flap Outdoors hats. And I love it, man. And I can't thank you enough for having me on here today to talk about the music, other bullshit, whatever, man. I'm just glad to be here. And I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for having me, man. And I hope that more people will follow you and build it, because this needs to keep going, man. What you're doing, man. What you're doing, it needs to become a standard in this area, a staple, you know, of that Southeast, specifically Alabama. There's so many artists in Alabama that are growing right now, but this Alabama sound and the way you're tapping into it and bringing out the best of people, man, you've had nothing but a great attitude and hospitality, and I love it, man, and I appreciate you for having me, man. Thank you.
Well, keep on keeping on, Kris.
Thank you, sir. Mud Flap Outdoors, make sure you follow, man, for sure. Make sure you follow, listen, like, share, comment, everything. Not just my videos, all the podcasts he ever does, all the videos he ever puts out. Make sure you like, share, comment, everything.